glimpse of him. There was an annual potluck festival. Adds a little extra to potluck being a festival. The whole community looked forward to it. The church invited everyone around to come forth, and boy, did they turn out. In the parish hall, they would have all the long tables, and it would be festive. There would be music. There would be all kinds of great conversations and so forth. Great outreach for the church. Now, there were particular people in the church that had particular gifts to make casseroles, to make soups, to make these wonderful entrees and even a few pies. But there was one volunteer that did not possess such a gift. Her name was Clara. And she said it was for everyone's good health that she did not cook anything. Well, Clara, she had a wonderful heart, and her gift was hospitality. She was able to come in and set up the tables, and put the napkins and the plates and the silverware. She did know how to make coffee. She put out enough things to make people feel really welcomed and invited when they did show up. They opened the doors and the people came in, not just the members of the church, but their friends, the people they invited. They set those tables. And Clara, as all the other volunteers, looked forward to this annual potluck festival. The tables would be full. But she noticed that this year was a little different than years before. She noticed that people were a little quieter, that they whispered, they were being polite, they were eating the food, but they really weren't eating the food, if you know what I mean. And she said, what in the world is going on? And she even heard someone whisper, something is missing. She went into the kitchen, and when she looked in the cabinet to her dismay, she said, oh my goodness, we forgot to put out the salt shakers. So there she's quickly gathering all the salt shakers. She puts them in a dolly, and she goes out to every single table and sets the salt shaker. And immediately the mood changed. Immediately. And I'm not trying to disparage the quality of the food that was provided, but something happened. There's more humor, there was laughter, there's more conversation. One person she even heard say, my goodness, this is the best potluck we've been to yet. And she just couldn't understand what's going on until one of the head volunteers said to her, she said, you know, Clara, the only thing that changed at the table was the salt. That was it. And as soon as she said that, the power went out. And of course, you would think, what next? Well, the power goes out, and people are groaning and complaining, and some people were even so disappointed they were thinking about leaving. And this one gentleman whipped out his cell phone and he turned on his flashlight. And then others started joining, and one of the volunteers remembered they still had a leftover of Advent candles in one of these drawers, and they pulled them out and they stuck a candle on every single one of those tables. People began to talk more. The kids were doing shadow puppets on the wall. People were laughing. The gathering took place once more, not because the darkness disappeared, but because the light entered. The faces could be seen, the voices could be heard. One person even said, this is most intimate, the best potluck I've ever been at. Clara began to think long and hard about this event, and she began to measure those with Jesus' words, where he said, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light in the world. She wondered what a difference a little salt and a little light could make. And she saw it right there. But she did realize, she said to herself, you know, salt doesn't exist for itself, and light doesn't happen just to benefit light. We already have salt. We already have light. Jesus is telling us, Clara would say, that you already have what you need. You just need to put it on the table. You just need to bring it into the room. Sprinkle that salt. Allow the light to be a little dim. Because when that happens, we may get just a little glimpse of him. I'm going to segue to something that Patty called on my thinking. Yes, Patty. She sent me some pictures of Friday night's festival. Did they have a potluck at that festival? Cookies. Okay. All right. Well, there they were. Dr. Duncan was there to lead. And it was a mighty mustard seed experience, is what she said. There were about 400 or so people at St. Jerome. And it's a very good ecumenical activity that we join with them. They invite the community, and we come out. And as Dr. Duncan was sharing with me, he said, we were small, but we had a mighty voice. Not that it was very loud. It was the contrary to that. It was very personable, to where people had to lean in and really listen to what was being sung. The Nunc-Dimittis, I believe, is what he sung. I think that illustrates again what Jesus is saying about you are the light of the world, you are the salt of the earth. The salt, the light that Christ gives us is something to which we are to use. And sometimes in little bitty portions. I'm saying this to encourage you, because sometimes you may think that your faith is too small. You may think that you don't bring enough to that table or to that room, but you are mistaken. Never believe that. Christ is telling you you have what it takes. Bring me into that room. You express an invitation, you express hospitality, you express the warmth and the generosity that we know exists within the message of Christ. And when you have the table set and the annual festival is presented, be prepared that you may get people that may have undergone some difficult times. Maybe your own strength and your own people themselves are a little weakened, struggling, wondering if they have enough of what it takes to bring something of Christ into the world. That's when we want to turn to someone like Isaiah. Isaiah is giving us an account of his people in his day. I don't think it was a potluck. In fact, it was something intentionally opposite. There were no casseroles, there was no soup, there were no pies. They were fasting. Intentionally fasting because they didn't have any food. Isaiah was talking to a depraved culture of believers. Those who intentionally believed in God had little if none. And they were at odds with one another. People with clenched fists, it says in Isaiah. They were fighting. Hunger can make you do that. It can exhaust you. It can make you feel like you're at rock bottom and got nothing left. And yet Jesus encourages us to sprinkle a little salt. Isaiah, in his day, 600-700 years before Jesus was born in Bethlehem, is talking to a people that come to a place where the table is empty. And because it's empty, he is going to give them the words to which he felt they needed to hear. He's going to tell them in no short form to get their act together. I'm telling you that you have everything you need right here in this room. God is with us. He's given us the resource to depend on one another, to live and walk with one another, to put our bickering and our fighting aside. For this moment, he intends to bring in some seasoning of life. In moments of fasting, of depravity, of hunger, we're reminded again of the previous 12 verses from the 5th chapter of St. Matthew, where we read of the Beatitudes last Sunday, where God is blessing those who not only hunger, but they hunger for righteousness. And now as we follow the 13th to the 23rd verses of the same chapter, Jesus is saying, I told you you were blessed by this account, and now I'm telling you, you have that salt. You are that light. But when you're hunger, all you hear is your stomach. When you're blind, all you know is the darkness. But Jesus In his abundance, he finds exactly what is needed that night. The mood changes when you encounter community with the living Word of God. When you come into a place, you know what I'm talking about. It could be your own family. It could be your own dinner table where there's not much seasoning to that conversation. Maybe it's too salty. There's not much light. Might feel cold. That's the perfect place for you to begin exercising what Christ has given you. Sprinkle a little salt. Add a little light. It makes a remarkable difference. Today, just like it was in Isaiah's day, we can find people who hunger. We can find people that are in the dark. And yet we are reminded that without either one of them, nothing comes to life. That empowers all of you, doesn't it? It really makes you begin to think. I know Jesus is with me, but he's calling me to be part of him so that something can happen here today. We talk about this in the form of good news. We talk about this in the form of salvation. These words that we use in the church should be immediately at our reach. Because there are times where we will need a little salt. And there are times where we will need a little light. So dearly beloved, know that you are the salt of the earth. That you are the light of the world. And if you merely sprinkle a little salt, if you allow the light to be just a little dim, know that Jesus is certainly there. And with the application of both, you will get a glimpse of him. In the name of the Father, and the Son,